keep it clean, and then pull it out in the fall. We're actually replaced our old worn brine generator and storage system with the new modern AccuBatch brine maker and a 10,000 gallon storage tank. As I said before, the brine maker is a semi-automatic brine generation system that includes automatic salinity control and operates on a single phase electrical system, and that allows it to be installed anywhere and used without any special training or certifications. To assure that we have an adequate amount of brine on hand in the incident that in the case that we have a surprise winter storm, we like to make it ahead of time to store it. The 10,000 gallons would allow us to spray the entire town about 1.5 times right now, maybe twice. So it gives us a little extra capacity. Here's a breakdown of the costs associated with this. The AccuBatch brine generator is $29,500. The storage tank is $8,000, and then we are also asking for a stainless steel brine transfer pump, which will transfer the brine from the tank to our portable tanks we use to spray that exactly pickups. Financials for this, the cost of purchasing those items is $39,000 and would be allocated 100% to the equipment reserve fund. Legal is approved to form. Questions?
Well, that holding tank, on that brine holding tank, what are the chances of you storing that, that's all eaten through the fittings and stuff on that?
It shouldn't. We're using a polymer, we're using basically a plastic tank, and the salt should not eat it. We shouldn't have any issue with it eating through that tank. And the neat thing about this brine is if we make it, we can make it right now, put it in there and cap that tank, and as long as that water can't evaporate, it'll hold its salinity for quite a while. So we can make it ahead of time, and that way we're not back against the wall, we'll store it up to
So it'll have to be stirred or something, or it must all
Yeah.
settle out?
My understanding is it doesn't stir. The brine in our current tanks doesn't stir. And how they do that, I don't know. That's chemistry stuff that I'm not aware of. But we have not had any problem with it. It doesn't have salt settling in it. It just when the tanks evaporate the water is when the salt seems to settle.
How much goes in the truck when you go out? How many gallons?
We put about 500 or 600 gallons in the truck.
Do you have room for the tank right now?
We do have room for the tank. It's going to be it won't be flat and wide. It's going to be a taller, more cylindrical tank. So it'll take up smaller footprint than our current totes and everything now.
And the way that it currently is when the brine's made, and I can say this having actually had to help make it, we end up doing specific gravity where we have the floaty, take your sample and adjust it, but that requires contorting yourself to get in, and we have pumps and electric cables and whatnot, so.
And it really takes more of a trained eye. This new machine, you literally put your whatever richness you want, for lack of a better term, into the machine, and it sets it up for you. It'll test it as it makes it, and if the brine does not meet your desired percentage of salt, it'll run it back through the machine until it does, and then it'll pump it onto the storage tank.
So then you put the brine on, and then you put the sand on separate? If you have the sand in?
Sand, normally the brine will go on before the winter storm event, so we'll spray it on as it's wet, and the water will evaporate, leaving that dry salty lines you see on the road. And when you get ice on that, that keeps that ice from setting up and getting hard and thick. And then normally we'll put sand on after we get we'll get some light snowfall or some buildup in some places, we'll put sand on that. This is basically for the ice buildup that will happen in the initial form.
Do you have any sand mixed in with the salt too, or don't you?
We do mix salt with sand, yes. On the snow and stuff, we use sand and salt spreaders. What's that?
I thought he was asking for the brine, if we mix salt.
Yeah, no, but we do mix salt and sand for, that's our second part of our treatment. We have really kind of 3 parts of our treatment for winter storms. We'll do the brine application prior to the storm hitting, and then after the storm hits, depending on how severe it is, we will plow and salt sand, or just use salt sand, or just plow. A lot of that depends on the temperature. You can actually put salt brine on the road when it's too cold, and it can exacerbate your icing problem. Others is the moisture, is the snow thick, is it hard, is it icy, is it wet? There's a lot of variables in there on when you use water. But it is all part of our three-pronged system, essentially, for snow removal.
Any more questions?
Well, I guess we need to know whether we got budget for it.
There is, and it's in the equipment reserve fund, which has an adequate fund balance, so. It's something that if we buy it, we may not use it, but I suspect the way the forecast is for the winter,
We sprayed about 8 times last year. And just looking, we're spraying, I mean, it obviously depends on the weather.
yeah.
It could snow in September this year, who knows?
It's 2020, it could be 120 degrees in December, we don't know.
Yeah, we're not really sure.
If there are no other questions, I am recommending that the city council authorize us to purchase the AccuBatch brine maker, a transfer pump, and a 10,000 gallon storage tank in an amount not to exceed $39,000.
Now, is that tearing down the old stuff and everything else, or what is that?
I'm sorry, so my hearing is not.
Is that tearing down the old equipment too then?
Well, we'll take the old equipment apart and hold it down. Pretty much that's all it's worth at this point. I mean, I'll go back to the code to see if I get an idea.
So need to make a motion to approve this one?
It's hard to get from this picture to is the size of these 2 units. The current units is big, and with the storage totes, it's very big. We're talking about probably it would take a quarter of this room to store it. So we're gonna go, not only that, we'll gain back that space, and we'll go from the pretty beat up old unit to a smaller, like the size of this table, self-contained unit that's portable.
And I believe we purchased those in 2009 or 10.
They've been around a
And
while.
they were 25 years old when we bought them.
So those are, the old ones are made out of plastic or what?
Yes,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of, you notice all the outside piping and stuff, that's a constant problem with us,
Right.
rates and other issues. There's several pumps, each one of those different reservoirs has a pump submerged in it, and it's pumps in salt water, but short lives.
Alright.
Any additional questions?
I guess I'd make a motion to approve the purchase of the brine equipment for, what was it,
39.
39,000?
Second.
Motion by Larry, second by Brent. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Honorable Mayor and Council. This is the engineering services agreement for Rustic Creek Development. It's something that we do to begin the process for the design of our subdivisions. We last did this for Arbor Creek and for Elk Ridge. St. Andrews, this is just something, again, that we've historically done. To recap where we're at with Rustic Creek, our plat was approved on February 3rd. On June 15th, we accepted the petitions for improvements and the approval of the development agreement. The process is again identical to what's used throughout the Wichita Metro and in all of Goddard's residential developments since the 2000s. The cost is included in the petitioned amounts that were approved on June 15th, and we anticipate presenting Rustic Creek Improvement Temp Notes authorization resolutions at the August 17th or September 8th regular council meeting. That meeting would be on a Tuesday simply because of Labor Day. The one caveat that we anticipated receiving that we haven't quite received yet, as the engineer was out of town, we anticipate the letter of credit being forthcoming this week. So the proposed agreements between the city and Garver, and it provides for the design of the bond financed improvements. That's for paving, stormwater, the water system, and sanitary sewer. We recommend using the developer's engineering firm, which is the Metro standard for these kind of agreements, as they did the preliminary engineering services and the platting for the developer. The city engineer has reviewed the agreement, and the agreement conforms with the previous engineering service agreements that we've adopted. Payment would be made upon submission of an invoice by Garver with the approval of the project account, and then authorized through the payables. The amount to be paid, assuming that there's no additional hourly add-ons, would be $187,660. And again, that's to be paid through the temp note special assessment process. Legal considerations, again, is approved as to form by city attorney. And it's recommended, if there are no questions, that the city council approve the proposed engineering services agreement and authorize all necessary signatures contingent upon receiving the requisite letters of credit.
Any questions? Make the motion to approve the proposed engineering agreement with the necessary signatures. Contingent on the letter of credit.
Make a motion to approve the proposed engineering service agreement and authorize all necessary signatures contingent upon receiving the requisite letters of credit.
Thank you, Larry. Motion by Larry,
Second.
second by Sarah. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Item H3 is the second quarter 2020 department reports. Due to some illness, not COVID related, I will be presenting on behalf of City Clerk Terry Lamont and our finance officer, who will also be presenting at the next council meeting our monthly report, so you get a little more detail that's more current than this at the next city council meeting. Background, this is the drivers that kind of, again, we just saw this with our budget process, but the community vision statement that was established by the community was Goddard, a vibrant, growing community, growing and accessible, the destination of a family-oriented, active lifestyle. The mission of the city organization is to work cooperatively and efficiently to provide a vibrant community that's growing and accessible for our neighbors. We aim to be a destination for a family-oriented, active lifestyle. And the values of the organization that we as staff selected for ourselves is people first, people that we work with, the people in whom we work for, which is the governing body, and the people in whom we serve, which are our neighbors and community members. Stewardship, that we are placeholders and we are passing through, and we know that we have to serve honorably and nobly as we are placeholders of our position. We want to be solution-oriented, not just offering problems, but providing for a myriad of solutions for you, the governing body, to decide upon, and for our community to work through if it's a community-wide issue beyond the scope of the bench. Obviously, we want to be collaborative, working together, not just within the organization, but throughout the community. And of course, we want to be efficient and effective. Our strategic cycle has those missions and visions driving everything, with which has the community strategic plan, which is the community vision plan, the comprehensive plan that is utilized and required by statute for the planning commission, that then sets our priorities, and that's solidified within our department objectives and initiatives that you'll see here tonight, that then is assessed internally through staff in our meetings, and then reiterated in our employee scorecard or our evaluation process. And then here's what ties it all together, and that's the budget allocation and the resources that the city council just approved, and then it's just literally a vicious cycle of feedback loop. This is the adopted budgets for last year for our current fiscal year, so it's not our new one that we just adopted, but it shows the current mill levy for the kind of the first tier suburbs in and around Wichita, with Goddard obviously having the lowest of everyone. And I'd like to highlight that the only City with a lower mill levy than us is the city of Viola, and they're not a full-service community. So the administration department, we processed 39 agenda items in Q2 with 4 ordinances and 5 resolutions. There were over 604 pages of documents that we created for our staff reports for these 5 city council sessions in Q2. There were 5 vendor permits issued. We have 31 full-time employees. Obviously, the number fluctuates with vacancies and whatnot. We had, as you can see, an increase in sick hours in Q2 19, and that was because we had 2 voluntary separations and 2 involuntary separations for payout. So rather than paying longevity pay, that's how the city of Goddard's opted to do this since prior to my arrival. Utility billing, we have 1,865 water customers, just under 1,800 sewer customers, and we had $31,688 as of June, with $818 moved to bad debt for that quarter, and then obviously the total set off for the state for the state set off program, which is a program that Department of Revenue withholds folks that owe money to governments for taxes and whatnot. They withhold their state income tax returns until those amounts are paid off, and that's statewide. Accounts payable, we issued 297 checks, processed 383 invoices for Q2, and total invoices paid was just under 1.5 million. Obviously, the largest amount of that's for improvements for the residential subdivisions that are going in. Municipal court, we paid $787, which you can tell is quite low for the quarters, but that's given the fact that because of the lockdown, there weren't municipal court sessions. We had 68 cases, 24 were set over. We had 1 diversion, 2 dismissals, and 17 warrants issued. I'll turn it over to Chief now.
Good evening. I'm going to give a quick overview. Honestly, a lot hasn't changed from the last quarter just because of the inactivity and the lockdown. Police activities remain relatively low, not just in Goddard, but across the county. Continue to use practices and equipment to ensure the safety of our officers and the public during this time with this COVID pandemic. And we did have Officer Meeks successfully complete field training, and he's now out on his own. Some of the activity from the second quarter, I should say total Q2 cases, 227, 42 citations written. You can see the numbers of kind of proactive activity is traffic, building checks, the PCCs or the citizen contacts that I've asked the officers to conduct, where they're actually, it has nothing to do with any enforcement. It's basically just going up and talking to people and they see them sitting out on the porch or whatever. Motorist assist, alarms, and then animal control falls in our purview as well. Those numbers have remained pretty consistent even with everything going on. Total animal control calls was 8, with 1 neglect and 1 vicious out of those. Crime stats for second quarter, I should say second quarter, I apologize. Really, it's remained about the same. Arrests are down, obviously, a little bit. Warrant arrests are down across the county. Drug offenses, assists are pretty consistent. DUIs probably about the same as what they run this time of the year anyway. So the officers are still out there doing good traffic enforcement and paying attention to the high crash locations. Crashes, 20 in the second quarter. Only 1 of those was an injury accident, 14 non-injury, and then the under 1,000 are ones that don't require a state report or they happen on private property. 12 out of the 20, as you can imagine, are along Cadillac. So again, that's kind of a high crash location for us. still haven't been able to really implement any of the things that we would be, right this time of the year, we would be up to our neck in kids getting back to school, doing things at the, various neighborhoods. So, we're looking forward to where this thing kind of winds down. We can get back to some sense of normal activity. I know the officers miss it. I know the public misses it. We've got no tours coming through here this year, even though we get all that at the end of the year, even with the young school kids in the elementary school. So, coming soon, same size you saw last time around. It's just not a whole lot we can do about it right now. We're having a couple of staffing issues. Currently we were down 2 positions and received letters of resignation from Detective McCann, Officer Pike, both are going to pursue other career options and or go back to school. We are currently running a hiring process to fill these positions and hope to be back at full staffing pretty quickly. We've got, as of this morning, I think 26 or 28 applicants that we're looking at. So we've got a mix of people wanting to get into this for the first time, as well as some folks with some past experience. Bottom line is it's a tough time to be a cop. It doesn't matter where you're at. If you're in a small town, we enjoy a lot of the benefits that the bigger cities don't have. Very positive community, overwhelming support from the community. And that's what I think we're kind of attracting people this direction, but it's still tough. So I think that has a lot to do with why we've had some turnover here recently. Any questions? I know that was short and sweet, but not much else to report.
Most of the outside agencies of the sheriff's department helping them, or what?
What's that?
Most of the outside agencies that you're helping, is it the sheriff?
Yeah, well, I mean, the county operates really on a very strong mutual aid agreements with surrounding agencies. So maybe Cheney, we've run out there a couple of times. The sheriff's office helps us equally as much. With us a lot of times trying to run officer on the street. So we document that now. When I first got in here, none of that was documented, and I want to show how much we're actually out helping other agencies or backing them on stops, whatever. So they actually pull a case number for those calls.
And I suppose most of the thefts are out of Walmart, I suppose.
A good chunk of them, yeah. We had a couple of trailer thefts 2 weeks ago right here in town. Same night, 2 trailers drug out, and Officer Sheila did some fantastic work, and by the next day had the suspect identified based on pictures that we were able to grab just off of video of it going down the street and putting out the feelers and getting an idea. So the suspects that have been identified have hit Wichita and the county and Hutch. I mean, everybody and their brother was looking for these guys, but I was really proud of them. They did some great police work, and we were able to solve a case that's affected a lot of other communities. Any other questions? Thank you.
The ball fields, seems like there's not a lot of crime out there with the increased traffic.
Now, we had a couple of calls last week. They're largely dealing with intoxicated.
I heard about that. Heard a little bit about that.
That's gonna happen.
It's serious business, that
Yeah,
baseball.
weird.
With the pro players.
So as you can see, our numbers are down just a little bit since we were closed in the quarter. Except for, our programs offered is up, and we've been doing a lot of things virtually, like story time and going out to team weekend and stuff like that, so. And our interlibrary one is up, being a huge share, so that's still up. So we've gone a little out of our comfort zone and done a ton of virtual things. We're gonna work on figuring out some ways to support the school. Hopefully we'll be able to do some tutoring in person and virtually this year. So we've got some retired teachers that are interested in helping us out, so we're doing that. So I think we're gonna plan on doing that. We've gotten grants. So we did the Tanganyika Story Walk. It's actually by the Hippo now, not in the children's area. But they can go out and read about Fiona and then feed the hippos. And we've had a lot of people that have liked going and doing that, or would like to do another one. We've kind of talked to the Prairie Travelers about doing one on the trail. So we just got another grant. So that was part of that, was to do some more signs. So this is what we've been redoing our space. We've moved all of the DVDs out of the vault, and so that's the DVD shelving on the left. And so they're all out so people can look through them now instead of the sleeves that everybody hated. And that was in our annual survey. That was one of the things people wanted. So we moved the adult computers that were sitting there over onto the counter over there, and then we brought out all the audiobooks are over there where the sleeves were now. So, and with the grant funds from the Book Festival grant, we purchased, it says 2 on here now, we've actually got all 10 of the Oculus Go's, Apple TV, a new TV, the Nintendo Switch with the Labo kits, so, and an iPad, so whenever we can get people back in the building all the time, we'll have lots of things fun things we can do with the kids, but for now we're trying to figure out what all we can do with them. We did have some, this month we did have some in-person programming at the community center with 12 or fewer kids at a time. Did some cooking and some crafts and some miniature painting and some fun things to get the kids to have something to do. And we are doing story times on Mondays at 9:30 outside, so that if parents want to bring their kids, they can. And we're still doing it Facebook Live, so you can get it either way. So
I enjoy seeing you on Facebook. It's nice seeing you guys out there.
yeah, we're at the pool today.
Yeah.
And for Public Works second quarter, our numbers haven't changed that much. We still been repairing potholes. We did sweep a lot of lane miles because of 4th of July. Make sure we get all those nice fireworks off the roads.
But that looked interesting when you dumped that out, didn't it?
Well, I don't look. I don't look, you know what's in there. Yeah, we made sure we got out there immediately after the holiday and started cleaning up the mess, and I think my team members did a great job doing it. Not that many signs installed. We've got most of the signs mandated by the state updated, so we're just replacing things. They seem to not be getting run over quite as often as they were. I don't know what's changed there, but I'm happy about that. The biggest numbers here, I think, that I want to focus on, if I use this, are these two right here, shutoffs and rereads with water meters. Of course, we're not doing shutoffs right now because of the COVID situation and the guidelines set forth by council. I believe we are starting that again September 9th, and our number is going to be 120-ish, give or take. I don't know the exact number as of today. But the other number, the meter rereads, is something that those are creeping up as our census meters get older and die. And we've been buying meters, 20 a quarter or so, and we're not able to replace those dead ones as much as we'd like because we've got so much new construction. And so I'm mentioning this because hopefully in the future, been talking to City Treasurer Matt Long and City Administrator Brian Silcott about possibly coming to council and with a proposal for additional meters so we can get rid of some of the rereads. And something along with those new meters, I think we'd see is additional revenue, because those old meters, as they get older, are not as accurate, and so we're probably letting some water flow that we should have charged for. So that's something that I want to bring to council's attention. Always, as in the second quarter, our water use gallons goes up. We were about 35 million last quarter. We're 57.7 million this quarter. That's pretty standard for this part of the time of year. We replaced one valve. We've exercised valves regularly. We did 9 this time. We've been doing a lot of water and sewer locates. That's also associated with the new development. The guys get to go out and locate the entire clover leaf, and it's not too bad. There's no buildings there, and the maps are pretty good, so it works out pretty well. It's just time consuming though. Our average well depth has increased a touch to 41.44 feet. That's up a little bit from right under 39 feet last quarter, but that varies a little bit as well. And keep in mind it is summer, more people are pulling water. Wastewater treatment facility's been about the same at 428,000 gallons, and we continue to meet all of our KDHE standards, which I'm very proud of my team for that. In the parks, As you can tell, we got the sod and the seed around the new playgrounds and got that growing. We have added some concrete to the brick memorial over in Linear Park, the trail memorial. They had broke out some of that, it wasn't finished, so we put a nice concrete border on the front of that. And we replaced the heater at the pool complex. Water and drainage, we had well number 4 disassembled, inspected, and rebuilt. We tapped the 12-inch water main along 183rd Street to provide water for Tanganyika splash pad. As I said before, we cleaned and exercised multiple valves. And something that we've been working with City Planner Mike Escaga on is stenciling the no dumping messages on storm drains, so people don't dump that and it doesn't drain into the waterway. So jumping bad stuff in it. Streets and right of ways, we continue to work on the dirt roads. We have worked on Cedar and Elm on the potholes in those 2 dirt roads. The smaller areas we've been able to work in pretty well with tobacco and get some of that taken care of, especially along Cedar and Santa Fe where it was getting pretty bad. We've got that under control for now. We'll keep working on it. We continue to fill potholes and of course sweep streets. At the wastewater treatment facility, the chain link fence has been replaced. As you'll know when you drive by, it's not straight because it follows the property line. Makes us a little crazy when we look at it every day, but it's kind of the way it is. And again, we've met all of our standards. For fleet and equipment, we received our 2 Dodge Ram pickups that we ordered. And that's a picture of one with the spreader in it. The plow on front, but that's the salt sand spreader in the back that we can use in the winter. It will also have a snow plow that we'll put on front for winter. But we're very happy to have those trucks. And then those are the 2 lawnmowers we received this spring. And those are working well as well. Something else we've done, this is something new here, it's a pollinator restoration program. What we're trying to do is combat the problem of widespread loss of pollinating insects such as honeybees. And so we're trying to build a habitat in certain places of city-owned, city-maintained property. For instance, if you'll notice around the community garden, it looks like tall grass. We planted a mixture of natural habitat grasses and similar black grasses and flowers in there. Unfortunately, this year the flowers didn't pop up like we were hoping, but based on our research, they should continue to flourish. We'll oversee it this fall, and we should have some really nice looking flowers out there next spring too. And later on in the program, we're hoping maybe to include some bat boxes out at the lagoons at the wastewater treatment facility. And it'd be nice to maybe partner with somebody to get some bees going in the city. We haven't really discussed that in depth yet, but we'd like to do that.
Do you have any places where we could maybe seed some alfalfa or sweet clover or something like that, or don't we?
Right off the top of my head, I can't think of it. That's part of the reason we're trying to get the flowers and the natural grasses going that have the stuff that they'll go after. I don't know much about beekeeping, so I can't give a lot of information, but we would like to get it going.
We like that canola they started planting around here.
Are they planting on now?
Yeah, that's where I think a lot of them came from around here.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
like the California people were getting their beehives stolen, so they were taking down to rural Kansas and putting their beehives out around in the canola fields.
Bees are a theft item now.
Yeah.
Chief, remember that.
Yeah, they still trailers full of them out in California.
No kidding. I did not know that. In the third quarter, a couple of these items have already been accomplished.
The Blue Bucket looks good too.
For instance, 2nd Street. I'm sure you've gone down 2nd Street since we've done the work on it. We've had the work done. Overall, the street turned out good, except the contractor put too much sand on it. So, and I talked to Dean Wallace, the engineering inspector today, and he agreed. So we are going to just blade that into a windrow and pull that sand off, and we can use it on some of the other roads. We'll make good use of it on roads, but we get that down to about 3/4 of an inch of sand. It won't be so crazy, and it'll help us combat that washboarding that's starting to kick up. It's better than potholes. It'll be better than a lot of sand by the end of this week. That's the plan. So we did get that, and they did a quick job of that, and I think they did a pretty good job with the exception of the water safety. The splash pad line scale reduction program is something that we're trying, and this is brand new in municipal government or anywhere as far as we know. What we've done is we're working with a company that normally does oil field and large manufacturing type processes, and they have got a rare earth element tool, they call them, that they clamp around a metal pipe. And when they clamp that around that, essentially those elements in that rare earth tool condition the water and change the shape of the molecules in it so they don't stick to it. They get great success in different industries, so they have let us try this tool for 30 days free to see what it does to the splash pad. So we clean the splash pad. One side of the mushroom, you'll notice there's still a little bit of limestone on. We left that on there on purpose because they say it'll also help remove limestone that's already built up. So for 30 days, we're going to give this a shot, and it didn't cost us anything. We put it together, give it a try. If it works, we may bring a proposal to council to purchase. We may not. That will be further discussion between the city administrator and I.
Is that something citywide or just for the splash park?
We're just doing it right now with the splash pad. We're watching its impact on everything from chlorine residuals to the bacteria in the water. What it will do is we watch that inflow come into our wastewater treatment facility, make sure it doesn't impact our bugs. So this is kind of a small scale experiment to what maybe could eventually lead into a much, much larger scale project, but we'll wait for the future for that. And we did replace the valve on 119th Street that I brought to council last time, and that will allow us to move forward on the repair on the leak at Well Set. And then the water meter replacement program is what I mentioned earlier when I discussed the meter reroutes that we're going to have. Any questions?
The bucket looks good, I noticed that. I drive by, it looks nice and blue.
But we keep going. We're trying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something interesting on that splash pad reduct line scale program. The gentleman who helped us install it, the company rep came over, and before he installed it, he took a gallon sample water that they're sending to an independent lab. They're paying for it, and then he waited. That was at 10 a.m. in the morning. He came back at 2:30 in the afternoon, took another gallon, same jug, not the same exact jug, but same identical jug. Set them side by side. And I'm not kidding you, 2.5 hours later, that water looked more clear. Came out of the same faucet, the same splash pad. Maybe it's just ours playing a trick on us, but it was kind of interesting. So we're excited to see what we're going to see there.
Any other questions for Brooke? Thank you.
Mayor and council. And we've received a couple of texts early on that there was a sound issue which we were able to get fixed up, as we had folks texting to say. So that was fixed pretty early into the meeting. Financial summary, our fiscal health is good. We are positioned for continued growth. Our starting balance for April was 13.8 million across all funds, and that is currently at 14.9. Now, this is a restricted cash, so we can't really count that, but the overwhelming majority is such that we're able to show that our funds are moving in the right direction. One item to note, though, is that, and we'll get into this with the sewer fund, is that we are pre-positioning for an increase in our escalator for the debt service payment that's going to increase by $500,000 here next year. Year-to-date fund balance. This is the general fund, and you can see that it's on an upward trend. With the bond and interest fund, that fluctuates with our temporary notes, so that's kind of a false positive, if you will. We increased our debt issuance, so that's why that spiked up. And then our special highway, which are motor vehicle taxes and the gas tax, that's down somewhat, but those are distributed to us from the state. So that a portion, that's a state calculation. Our utility funds, again, as we mentioned previously, in the all fund summary, the sewer fund is increasing, and that's because of the debt service capture that we know we're going to have an additional $500,000 in debt service, which should be our last escalator going forward until the facility's paid off. You'll see we have a relatively flat but a slowly declining water utility fund balance. Your general fund overview for our revenues and expenses by category. Property taxes, 2.19, which again, this captures the June distribution that we get, whereby we've received 97 to 98% of our property tax distribution occurs at that singular point. So we are 50% through, and we've collected 70% of that. We anticipate this amount being collected over the remainder of the year ahead. Charges, licenses and permits are generally our building permits, and half of that is remitted to Sedgwick County. Charges for services is largely our municipal court, and then the itemization of our cost centers by object level 1, which is the personal services, which is predominantly the police department, and then the contractuals, commodities, capital outlay, which does include our police cruisers, non-operating expenses, and then transfers to other funds. Our property tax history shows an upward trend that's related to property tax growth and a small increase in our assessed valuation. Our sales tax history shows that we receive a county distribution that's relatively stable. That number is apportioned by the county through a metric that's provided to the county by MAPD based upon our population estimate and total collection. The city amount collected, you see, has been growing relatively steadily. There's been a small decrease in actual sales tax, but an increase in compensating use, which we'll get into later. Our tax revenue shows that property taxes account for 56% of general fund revenue, with the other taxes that we discussed briefly as a third, and then our franchise fees, which are collected through and those are generally established at the state level for the telecom and cable television, with Westar or Evergy now, pardon me, and Kansas Gas Service included in that amount, and then 1% delinquency and 2% for the motor vehicle. This is just a horizontal of our trend line going up by fund type, and you can see that the motor vehicle is relatively flat to slightly decreasing. That again is apportioned by the state, with that little purple blip being delinquent tax collections for folks that pay in arrears. Our general fund expenditure by department shows the general government component with a budget of $740,000, but we've expended 22.5%. Mayor Council, that number's down because there's been no league of municipalities or functions like that to attend. City Hall is the fixed contractual cost for the paying for the gas and the electricity and heating and air. Court services and police administration, again, largely financed entirely through, well, they are financed entirely through the general fund. And then the breakdown of our police, including code enforcement, which again, a large number of that is the estimation for the remittance to Sedgwick County for our building permits. Rec and culture, we had $109,000 for the pool. A third of that's employees. Because of the late start and the early close related to the start of school and the COVID, that number is going to be relatively fixed, as we're only going to have one additional month beyond for that. Parks and Rec, again, this is largely, and you can tell, I believe it starts in page 58 or 60 of your agenda packet, where it breaks these items down by individual line items. But within this, recreation and culture includes the community center costs, library assistance, and building support for the library, as well as the community events, which is the allocation for the chamber. We have economic development, which are like largely attorney fees that are related to what we're doing for reviewing the myriad of documents that we have regarding the STAR bond or the development agreements and whatnot. Transfers to other funds, which we'll break down here later, shows that that distribution has subsequently been made, but at the time we do that in a lagging function until the fourth quarter, so that's why that's below the percentage amount. Expenditures by type, it's just a pie chart of what we just saw. Revenue and expense history for the water fund shows that our sales are up compared to where they're usually at for this time of year, and our expenditures are relatively stable for where they are this time of year. This is a chart of our revenues on the left in blue and our expenditures on the right, with our fund balance decreasing, as what we've talked about previously. The sewer fund shows that we have an upward trend in revenue that again is largely attributed to the debt service multiplier that we have on that, or the debt service fee that's been fixed to account for the additional increase in our debt service payment that's forthcoming, where we're looking at increases in our personal service costs, but that's largely due to actually having all of our positions filled. And if you remember when we were talking to the administration with involuntary and voluntary separations, half of those were within our sewer fund. Again, the debt service that we talked about previously, as you can tell that it's increasing year over year. Sewer fund balance is again increasing due to the increased collections for debt service payment. Street funds, apportioned through the county sales tax distribution. Our fund balance is sizable, and so as we discussed in the budget process, we'll be transferring additional funds from the street fund into our equipment reserve for that amount. Special highway fund, again, it's just kind of re-encapsulating what we discussed on the earlier slide for all funds. Are there any questions over my rambling of Matt's agenda report?
Any questions? Larry?
If not, we'll get into the administrative report. Some of this that you'll see are going to be pictures of what Brooke has already discussed. We did have one additional STAR bond distribution since our last council meeting to bring the total amount distributed to $24.1 million. So we have 95% expended with just under 5% remaining. So there's an additional $1 1/4 million remaining. This is a view showing the fields looking from Kellogg South with the pool and the water park, and then the pad sites that are under development with the child care facility here, health club here, and the hotel site here.
Like the water park roof starting to go on now.
Yes. You can't really see it in this image, but
Do we keep any of that money there, that 1 million back until we're satisfied that everything's where it's supposed to be?
we're distributing that in accordance with the statute, Larry, which essentially says that, and I have to reconcile in other words, every payment has an invoice, and it's relatively time consuming.
I mean, if we aren't happy with the way something's going, we don't have any recourse then?
No, sir. Once that's been distributed for the public part, which is this little building here and these ball fields, then the remainder here is underway. There's not a whole lot we can do. Again, we're distributing it in accordance with the statute. Arbor Creek, this is continuing on phase 1. We have 2.8, almost 2.9 in assessments. We anticipate the 240 lots, 12 have been sold. There's 43 phase 1 lots, so we're looking forward to seeing some additional property tax revenue coming in at that point. This is a view with 23rd Street and the school, Amelia there. And then here's the spec homes, and then you can see there's some homes going in on the back side there. So
Where's the other phases at?
they'll be over here and then over here. And there's a little bridge that I know Harlan and Kansas Paving and then we're working so that, because there'll be an integrated path system through here and a way for the pedestrians to be able to walk through that area from this additional phase to these existing phases. Plus eventually phase 2 will likely be down here as these roads are extended and there's little stub outs. Cloverleaf work's underway. We're almost done, but we've got 2.2 million issued. There's 28 lots, and Micah reports that of the 22 lots, we've got 4 already sold. So permits have been pulled, and this is the view with the lagoons and the city shop on the north side, with the Seasons looking back to the west and Kellogg to the south here. The R-Cut, which this is the Star Bond and the frontage road. This is the north frontage with Vermeer, and this is where the R-Cut intersection will actually go. In fact, we have a meeting scheduled for midweek to figure out and finalize the stormwater and cross slope, median landscaping, tree removal and whatnot for that area. Frontage Road project, this is a view looking south with 183rd Street running vertically here and Kellogg to the south. And what the plan is right in here, this will essentially be from this area here back to the road will be torn out, and then the frontage road will bend back around and connect in here. We do not anticipate a closure of 183rd, although a limited closure may be possible. And what we'll do, if that is the case, under KDOT's direction, we will utilize Everbridge and do a system-wide call to notify everybody of what it's closed for, how it's closed, what it'll be down for. We'll have a website, some maps also to direct folks to, and I will be the one delivering that message voice. It won't be a computer or anything like that, because we'll want folks to understand why that is. And then obviously that's just kind of a precursor for if we're able to get funding to actually redo the full intersection, as we need to coordinate with that R-Cut that the state was requiring. Second Street project, Brooke touched on that. It just runs from 199th to Main. And this is a view while they're performing the work, and then a view looking back toward 199th. So 199th's down here looking west, and this is Main Street looking east. The water valve that Brooke talked about has been completed. This is the wet tap portion of that. The only thing that's different is this little doohickey that actually performs that tap is not there. So the blue with the line right there is what it is, and the silver tap removed is the only difference. And we'll get you a final version of that for the next meeting. COVID grant, you may have seen in the paper, we got our distribution. We'd requested $300,000. They pretty much gave anybody who asked that had a compiled packet $132,000. So we'll roll out our application process and for distribution of funds to our businesses, and I'll make calls and visit each of our businesses along Kellogg and solicit folks if they are interested in what those parameters are for us to begin that process for the distribution, as we need to have the funds distributed by September 20th, or the unspent funds will be swept back to HUD. And we're working, and I know Angie's here, we've been in communication, so we'll be working with the chamber for getting the word out to the members as well as non-members for how to apply for these funds. And just to remind you that at the next council meeting on August 17th, we'll have a resolution authorizing for the solicitation of bids for the assessment bonds, with final action occurring on Tuesday because of Labor Day, September 8th, for a bond resolution and ordinance that'll be considered to essentially, the resolution accepts the best bid and the ordinance actually finalizes the sale. And we'll get those bids in and turned around on at 11 o'clock that day. So that concludes my report. If there are any questions.
Thank you. Larry, you have any for us?
Just gonna see if it was possible, since winter's coming on, whether we can utilize that shed as a new park to put some of our equipment in over the winter, so they're not sitting outside, or is that something we can't do?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
We can look into it. My only concern is security, and that's something we look into, make sure we can adequately secure those doors. I pay for someone to get in there at night and do a standard piece of equipment. We have to look into it.
So we don't have any power door to put cameras or something up there, or?
I think we could probably find something, definitely. Sure. We can figure it out and make that lock up.
It looks to me, I was up there looking at it, it looks like there's plenty of space where you can put a lot of stuff.
There is, I agree. Yes. So yes, we can definitely look into that.
That's really all I have for now. Other than the Second Street looks pretty good, really, from what I saw.
Sarah?
I don't have one.
Brent? Who's got something?
Oh man, I do. So the community center, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about that, man. It sure does need a coat of paint at least if we're not gonna do anything with it. It's looking bad.
We can certainly get some options back to present. We've done it in the past. so-
Coat of paint, some guttering, you know.
Wood rocks was.
Right. Picture Jamie on the front of it, maybe, I don't know.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it. That's all I was thinking, that maybe we can, it's looking.
What about the water rates? What's going on with those? Are we
Well-
still in terms of the base rate, or?
Yes, and as we discussed previously, now that we're done with the budget, that's Matt and I's priorities to try and review that. I know what was initially discussed, I think, again, with the fund balance decreasing and how some of the early discussions were, we want to make sure we move diligently, because I know we want to make sure that we're not shifting the entirety of those costs onto other ratepayers, because I know initially we were concerned that there may be an increase on about 70% of our users in order to soften the impact on the lowest users. But I think we can work a process to get that done in a way that minimally impacts everyone and still accomplishes what we wanna do, which is helping the folks that are our lowest users and on fixed income.
So maybe like between now and like January before we do the.
Yes, sir. Our staff's plan for our work plan is to have something to the council by fourth quarter.
I've got something to read here. Council members, I am resigning from my position as mayor, effective immediately. Ongoing conflicts and communication between myself and city administrator and not being able to welcome to work in the city building. My vision for Goddard cannot be fulfilled. I appreciate all the city staff, police, public works for their hard work in keeping our city in good shape. I look forward to the support of our community as a Goddard citizen. I will hope in the future that City Council will reflect the office of Mayor and City Administrator to remain, and that the City Administrator will not be given more power by becoming City Manager. And I thank you. And I wanted to read the letter that I got back when I asked to reclaim my office, the shared office space. The response from the Administrator was, regarding your office space at City Hall, you are aware space is tight. As a ceremonial head of the city, as a member of the governing body, use of space for the policy oversight initiative would need to be provided for each member of the governing body, and may not be the most efficient use of limited space. If you would like to discuss policy initiatives, my door is always open. The city administrator's position is responsible for overseeing the day-to-day operation of the city's organization. Researching and recommending policy to the city council. Developing city's annual operating budget oversight and all employees and appointed officers directly through subordinate supervisors. Advice to the council on current and future financial and operational conditions. I'm happy to meet one-on-one with you to discuss any of the above functions, as well as other specifics of my position or municipal operations. And I just felt like, as I'm moving forward, I can't get the things done that I would like as communication here, and just being considered a ceremonial mayor, that's not me, and that's just kind of where I came with my decision. But I appreciate everything you've done for the city. I just feel like maybe if that's my time to step back, maybe we can get communication a little more on board and a little more collaborative. But I appreciate everybody's time, and I want to thank you.
If I may, and I appreciate the mayor for his time, and as we've discussed, the mayor's one of many, first among equals, if you will. No more nor no less authority than the power of the body, the whole. And with that said, in order for this to take effect, there needs to be a motion and a second to accept that resignation.
Okay, that being said, for motion.
I'll make the motion to accept.
Okay, second.
Why are you looking at me?
Yeah, I need a second.
Step down.
Well, I need you guys to accept it though.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah? Sarah? You're stuck.
No, I need you to accept it, because I just feel like it's just not the environment I want to be part of right now. And it's just, some things aren't working, and I don't like the vision. I really need you guys' support on this.
Second it.
Okay. Motion second. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Look for motion adjourned.
So moved.
You're not the mayor, you can't adjourn.
Yeah.
Motion adjourned. Thank you, everybody.